Let's keep it going with the Pac talk. Now it's the second disc, right? A okay. Second disc of All Eyes on Me. Can't See Me for Sure, I think is a stronger song on there by far on that second disc. Didn't really care for the second disc of All Eyes on Me, I gotta be honest. Again, it's been years, many years since I've listened to this project, so I'm kind of going off memory on this. Like I said, Pac is not really somebody that I go out of my way to check like that. You know what I mean? But every now and then, if like a song comes up or he gets mentioned or something, and I'm like, let me just throw on like a one Pac song or something, then I might listen to it. You know what I mean? But yeah, the rest of All Eyes on Me is kind of weak to me personally. So that's that. And those are the albums that he released while he was alive. Of course, what made Pac so fascinating was, like, I remember when Pac died, and it was like, after that, he just kept coming with these, like, posthumous albums. And the songs, the singles were pretty good, actually. And it almost had this, like, prophetic vibe because Pac always sort of prophesized that he was going to be killed or something like that. So obviously the story and the narrative around Pac was wild, right? I mean, I remember people actually thinking that Pac wasn't dead and that he was actually in Cuba or something like that, or that the government assassinated him, or like, I remember these stories. Which is why it's so interesting that Vlad uncovered, and I'm giving credit to Vlad because really Vlad is the person that put it out there. When he started interviewing whatever his name, Keefe D, and some of these other guys, and just saying like, look, listen, like Pac actually got killed by like a gang member. That was something no one talked about. Like back then, no one had any idea that that was actually the case. What people thought happened was he was assassinated, or some hater killed him, or what, it was vague. It was super vague. And I'm sure that was deliberate on the record label's part because ultimately it helped to fuel the mystique and fuel the sales of Tupac's work. Now, so the posthumous stuff comes out crazy. I never liked this album. I got to be honest with you. The 7-Day Theory, Don Killuminati. I remember it was a really big deal at the time. Again, let's see. There were some of these songs. Like in the hip hop community, I remember people talking about it back then. But Hail Mary, Hail Mary was crazy. See, that's what I'm saying. Like Hail Mary was nuts. I didn't care for kind of the rest of it, but Hail Mary was nuts. Like I remember listening to Hail Mary all the time back then. And then I think was this song. I don't remember if it was Crazy. I think it's Crazy. I like the beat for Crazy. I like Crazy. Crazy was a pretty good song. Against All Odds is Bone First, but it's interesting to hear in hindsight how this basically they recorded this album. It was like the whack room or something like that, and they got the whack producers to make stuff. Because I do think that some of these beats are actually pretty whack, personally, but they do have a desperate vibe to them. And again, it does, even if it doesn't work for me musically, I understand it has a feel to it. Like when you listen to Don Killuminati, especially knowing that Pac has just passed, it has this like paranoid vibe, the entire record, which can be pretty powerful actually. So let's see, Are You Still Down? Man, there's so many damn albums, man. It was just like one after the other with this guy. I don't think I heard this album in full, to be honest with you. I'm looking at these tracks and I don't know any of them. The only one that I know, I wonder if Heaven Has Got a Ghetto. I should listen to that because of Soul Shock. I'm kind of curious to see if that's a good beat. Do for Love, of course, I know because that was huge, at least in like hip hop circles to me. And that's a great song, one of Pac's best songs. But yeah, I don't know the rest of these, I gotta be honest with you. Oh, Only Fear of Death is fire. So, I heard that recently, for the first time. I mean, within the last year or two, actually. So maybe I should check out this album. But yeah, Only Fear of Death is nuts. And that's that Live Squad shit that's just like, Take It in Blood, Pain, Only Fear of Death, like some of these like bizarre, almost borderline bizarre, but just so fire, so raw beats. You know what I mean? So yeah, Pac was dropping hot shit. I mean, these tracks and these songs, these beats were ill. Like, I wouldn't say all of them were. A lot of them were pretty mediocre, but there was always one or two that were just like, yo, this is dope. Then he's got his greatest hits. Oh, they had some new ones. This is where changes came in, because I remember changes on the greatest hits, which I liked. I love changes, actually, when it was released. I always used to stand by that being one of Pac's best songs, period. And that song in particular was very, very big. That was a really popular song. Even people like my parents who didn't know anything about Pac would be like, oh, I like that song, you know? And they would hear it, and when it came on the radio and something like that, it'd be like, man, it feels bad that, like, you know, this guy got killed, you know? People fell for this dude, you know what I mean? Like, adults, I remember adults who didn't listen to rap. Again, I'm talking about my parents, really, but they weren't Pac fans, they didn't know his music, but there was something about Pac, his look, and the fact that he died young. It was shocking, really. You know, now rappers die all the time, you know, clout chasing, doing dumb shit, but it wasn't common for rappers to just get killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was shocking when this happened, on some real shit. So greatest hits, Still I Rise. Damn, so many of these damn albums. Holy crap. I mean, that's the thing with Pac. Like, he recorded a gazillion songs. And to me, part of the problem with doing that is obviously when you record so many songs, you tend to, it almost feels like autopilot after a while. I mean, there's a talent to it without a doubt, but like it's almost autopilot, and you can end up, in my opinion, becoming repetitive. You just kind of say the same thing over and over and over and over again, right? Like the same vibe, the same thing, because you're just on autopilot. Boom, 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 boom. You're not stopping to really sit and think and approach things differently. And that's, again, some of the issues I have with Pac's music. I do feel that in a weird way, even though people will say that Pac, you know, talked about subjects and he was like this multifaceted, you know, being, I do think in a weird way his music is kind of one-dimensional. It can be argued because it's very like, you know, paranoia, I'm mad, you know, the homies, it's all kind of the same sort of, you know, vibe. And then the occasional, you know, thing, you know, he's thinking about, right? Let's see, Still I Rise, haven't heard this at all, I think. I'm trying to look through this track list. Nah. And you know what? I don't have the interest in going back to these, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, maybe one day, but as of now, not really. Now, let's look at this. The Rose That Grew From Concrete, posthumous writings. Okay, whatever. Until the End of Time. I remember the song. And I remember really loving the song, actually, back then. I can't believe this came out in 2001. It feels like it came out like a year earlier. But yeah, I remember, you know, when he was in, even the way that it edited the video was so dope to me. And he's like, all right, I'm my Lolo, got the whole world moving in slow-mo. I remember that used to always hit me, that line in particular. So I remember this song quite well, actually. Letter to My Unborn Child obviously was fire. We loved that record. MJ sample. So there was always like, you know, two undeniable songs at least. Never heard this entire album. I mean, this is a lot of songs. This is like 28 songs on one disc for Until the End of Time. I don't know how good that's gonna be, right? But anyway. And I feel like then Better Days, Jesus, more posthumous shit, man. I don't think I listened to any of this. My Block remix, maybe I listened to My Block remix. And I think this is kind of where it ends for me with Pac, to be honest with you. I mean, there's other shit. It just was like new mix classics. I don't even know what the hell. Oh, this is the thing. Tupac Resurrection. I remember Tupac Resurrection, I guess the soundtrack or whatever. Then it was like Eminem. I don't know. It was weird to me. Like Eminem was on it or something like that. I didn't care for this at all. I did not care for this shit. Let's see. Anyway, I'm gonna end there. There's a lot of Pac, man. But the long story short is that, yeah, Pac is a legend, man. I mean, I have him as one of the greatest rappers ever, and I do think it's undeniable that he left such a mark on the game. Partly, obviously, for his antics. It's a big part of who Pac was, or his antics. But it's the look, it's the charisma, the vibe of Pac, and the music. And the music was good. Like, there's a lot of it that's not very good, in my opinion, but there's a lot of it that's also very good. And that's what makes you a great rapper, in my opinion. It's the discography, right? I look at it and say, okay, when I was making that list of greatest rappers, I was like, how many amazing songs does this person have? Do you know what I'm saying? And obviously, the more amazing songs you've created in your career, the greater you are. That's just how I look at it, right? And I'm talking like undeniable shit. Like, you know, people have been playing them, you hear them at spots, or they're just great songs. They just hit, you know, people talk about them, they're referenced, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, put together well, all that shit. So I do think that Pac is one of the greatest, without a doubt. I was going to say, lastly, I remember seeing John Singleton at a presentation when he came to Toronto. And he was talking about Pac, about how he thought Pac was a mediocre rapper, right? He was very blunt about it. And I agree with him, actually. I agree with John Singleton. I mean, that was his assessment. He was like, Pac wasn't like the craziest rapper. I mean, you have to understand, this is a guy that came out dancing with Digital Underground. You know what I'm saying? Like, in an era where there was Rakim and Grand Poobah. I mean, you know, when you listen to those guys and then you listen to Pac, I mean, the quality difference is night and day, respectfully, right? But the thing is with Pac, obviously Pac got better, right? I mean, he improved his rapping skills, which is one thing you could say. He was passionate. He definitely became a better rapper as time went along. And he also just had like crazy, like, you know, things happening, which I guess, you know, created his notoriety. And then on top of that, people on his team are, you know, handing him great shit because, you know, he's got the notoriety. And, you know, so that's how it ends up, you know, for Pac, he ends up coming with all these great songs, right? And like I said, it's kind of interesting how a lot of these younger rappers, to a certain degree, whether they know it or not, especially, you know, you look at the Tentacions of the world, right? Nipsey Hussle. A lot of these guys are trying to do the Pac thing. And, you know, Pop Smoke even to a certain extent. And it obviously will end up the same way it ended up for Pac, which is in death, right? And I say that respectfully. You can't go around starting shit, starting fights, being involved in fights, shootouts. I mean, eventually, it's, you know, it's going to affect you or the ones you love. That's just what it is, right? It's just a bad road to go down. And the reality of the matter is that rap, to a certain degree, has been infatuated with this stuff, particularly since Pac came. I think Pac really blew it out the window, like just like out the window with this kind of media attention, because he was getting a lot of media attention. And of course, casuals are buying in. They're looking at this dude and being like, oh my God, this is so interesting, right? You have to understand, man, America in general loves violence, right? Casuals love violence, and they love people that live it, right? They live, you know, it's like a movie for them, right? But who suffers at the end of it? It's the communities that have these, you know, individuals, you know, their families, others' families around them, you know? So, not a fan in that regard. And I do think that, obviously, in hindsight, I think, you know, Pac's behavior was questionable. I do think even the case that he had, again, I haven't really read into the rape case that, you know, he had at the time, but it wouldn't surprise me. I got to be honest with you. I know that, you know, we got to put Pac on a pedestal and all that because we're dick riders. And that's how the entertainment works. But it's very possible that Pac actually did rape the woman. It's very possible. Or him and his associates or whatever. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, right? And, you know, he was just moving wild like that. I mean, people forget that, like, I think there was an incident in Marin somewhere, earlier, which had left a kid dead because Pac had gone to a fight with some people and things like that. It was a shootout. Like, Pac was wild, man. And not in a good way, you know. Not in a good way, in my opinion. But, hey, a man of faults, but it is what it is. And I think the more we're honest about Pac's faults, and instead of sort of putting him on this like weirdo pedestal and just pretending like he's the greatest thing walking, I think the more that we kind of be honest about that, I think the better it is for the culture, because the culture needs that conversation. Again, it doesn't take away from Pac making some great music. You know what I mean? I'm not out here, I'm not on the Pac hate train, right? Like, I'm a believer in just being honest and saying, you know, what a person has done well and what a person has not done so well. You know what I mean? So that's that. I hope this has been useful to you. And if you have any comments, any sort of ideas, criticisms, or hate, feel free to leave it below. All right? So, peace.